one story that didn't make it in the book was that, the holiday season's always bananas, right? And we lost power there for, I think, 2 or 3 days, but it was like a week and a half before Christmas, so it's like the most important time. And they brought in these generators, and they're like, can you, my regular hours were like 12 to 5, and they'd be walking out the door, and they'd be like, hey, can you come back in like from 9 to 5 a.m.? And it was like, you had to say yes, you just had to. So you'd be like, yeah, for sure, it was either that or you're fired. So like, yeah, sure, we did that for like a week straight, trying to catch up on stuff. And then I was training as well, so. And I always liked it. It was fun, like you could just get locked into the work and like hammer away. And I learned a lot about myself that way.
Well, and there is a story about the jacket, which I love. I believe the BAA has the jacket now, as in the archives. That was just the jacket, though, that toward the end you weren't quite sure what to do about that. Explain.
Yeah, so the name Bib goes on the front, and Mary Kate Shea, who's the lead athlete coordinator, sitting down here, like, giving me the look, like, don't mess it up. That's how you should finish. And we were in the church getting ready, and everyone's picking the gear, and they gave us an extra number that day. It's like, you can wear a layer outside and then just throw it off so that your name bib is showing when you finish. And I'm like, well, like, if I get there, we'll see. And I was like, is this okay? Because I actually put the 8 on sideways, so it's like this sort of like infinity logo thing. And she's like, yeah, like just when you cross the finish line, make sure your name's showing. So late in the race, I was like, oh, she's gonna be so mad. But then I was like messing with it, and I was also like, if I lose because I'm playing with my jacket, she will also be so mad.
Did you take it off at one point? Is that like...
Yeah, because I didn't want to get yelled at for not having the right bib on the front.
I asked you once how you felt in that last mile of the race, and you said terrified. At what point did you realize that there was nobody behind you who could close the gap?
We went to drug testing afterwards. Josh and I were sitting there, and we were looking at the results, and we're like, that's not right. Like, where's the rest of the, must have been a timing error because of the rain with the equipment. We're like, refresh, and we're like, well, I guess we'll find out at the awards ceremony. And then we started asking around, just like, who else is in drug testing? What place did you finish? And she's like, oh, second. Like, what time did you run? And that's when I figured it out.
How incredible the gap, really.
Yeah, I would have slowed down for sure.
Because early on, you didn't even know you were going to finish.
Right.
And you actually helped Shalane who took a step off the course for a matter of a few seconds, stepped back on, and your mission was to help her rejoin the group.
Yeah, it was a crazy day, and again, like we talked about it as the springboard towards the next one. And the deeper you go into a race, you wonder like how much recovery is going to be needed. Am I going into the well? Am I going to set myself back? Like maybe this is a day where you just step off. So I was going to make it to the halfway mark and then play it mile by mile. And so I found her in the pack early on. I kind of tapped her on the shoulder. I was like, if you need anything, if you need me to block the wind or whatever, let me know. She was fine in the moment. And then about the halfway point, she found me in the pack. She's like, I'm doing this thing. And I was like, I'll try to slow the front down. And as soon as they saw her run to the porta potty, they're like, no, we're picking it up. Like, this is time to drop her. So it was a natural, the pace was it wasn't the right time to make a move tactically. Yeah, for sure. It's still a long way into the wind. And so helping her was just like, let's have more Americans in the pack. Like, let's give ourselves the best odds possible. But it was the first time in that process, like just running by effort, which was something I had done in the entire build-up, where the effort felt right and it felt natural, and I was like, oh, I actually feel pretty decent here. And that, kind of changed some things.
What also changed was the mental picture that you had in your head for so long about going down Boylston Street, about breaking that tape, because in a dream, it would never look the way it did in 2018. There's just no chance, right? So you make the turn, which, by the way, Hereford is a hill. You know what I mean? No one ever talks about it, but once you get to that point, it's an incline, and you make the left onto Boylston. What is going through your mind?
I was replaying a lot of 2011. Again, I had no idea what was happening behind me. I knew I had gone to the front, and I knew Cheshire had been very aggressive all day. She wanted to push the pace if she could. She wanted to be in front. And so when I passed her, it's like, if she feels good, she'll respond, and she'll take the lead again, and then I'll just wait. So I wasn't sure if she was still there. I thought probably not her, but someone else has probably closed up the gap. And so, and turned on to Boylston, and I think I had a little smirk. It was like, this is bananas, because you never get this opportunity twice. I just can't. This is crazy, and not on this day. And I was thinking, I know that I can run this stretch better than anybody if they've been chasing me for the last few miles. And I'm ready, basically I was ready for battle down Boylston if I needed to go there.
And instead it was a very soggy but glorious run to the finish.
Absolutely.
Boston's a really hard marathon. Why is this the one that has captured you?
It's a little bit of luck, I think. I think I resisted the idea of being a marathoner most of my running career, and even moving up in distances, I was like, why would anyone want to run the 10K? That's so many laps. And then the coaches were like, we're a 10K team. I'm like, oh, okay. Like,
it's going to be great.
Yeah, like, this is the only event this is the lowest distance. Okay, I'll do it. And then they're like, eventually I bumped up to the marathon because my teammates had run one, and I was jealous that they were marathoners and I was just a runner. You have to cover the distance. So, like, we're the same, we've done all the same stuff, but they ran one long distance race, and I was like, well, I need to do that too. And I was lucked into the fact that in 2007 it was the US Championships here in Boston, and the trials were going to be here the following year. Our coaches were very big on coming out and doing course tours and getting familiar with the city, and we did that, and it was great to cover the ground. And we also had the pleasure of meeting the folks at the BAA with Jack Fleming and Gloria Ratty. And, I was someone who was going to be mid-pack, not really in contention at all. And they took me under their wing and treated me like I belonged. And it was like, yeah, maybe one day you could win this race, And I just thought that was really cool. And then on race day, it was actually the Nor'easter year in 2007. And I was like, I've heard... you hear about the crowds here, and I got out there, I was like, this is amazing, like, these crowds are spectacular, this is the most fun I've ever had, like, these people really care. And, I talked to people afterwards, they're like, that was terrible this year. It gets better? So, yeah, it was just like,
while there are trees down on the course before the runners take off.
I loved it, yeah. And, the trials fall in every 4 years, and you do them because they're fun, but, I don't have win an Olympic medal on a 3x5 car. I've never had that. I feel like it's a very satisfying feeling getting to the finish in Rio, and I feel very good with what I've done at the Olympics. If I made it again, I wouldn't turn it down. I'd go and compete really well, and maybe I'd win a medal on the 3x5 car just for a couple months, because that'd be fun. But it's not the thing that like gets me up in the morning. Yeah.
And the make the Olympics, you've done twice, so that's there too. What would you say to somebody who has never run Boston? We're about in less than 2 weeks now to have 30,000 people in our city who will cross the finish line. But to someone who's never run Boston, what would be the advice you would give them about approaching this race?
Prepare for it. Do the work.
Let's dial in on that slightly more specifically.
It's going to get closer, but I think when you're doing the work, take the course in mind, and I think that's the challenge here. It's the everyone knows the Newton Hills, but it's the downhills, and it's that rugged last 6 miles in where you think like, oh, finally back on the downhills, and you find out if you've made mistakes early. So it's all the 101 stuff, getting that right, and then being really smart on the course, and not. It's an interesting thing because it's not listening to your body to a degree, because it's going to tell you like, I feel great. You have an assist from the downhills, so it's having another governing chip, which is between the ears, and listening to that a little more than usual.
Your intuition has always been really good, particularly when you have run the race that you set out to run, and others have performed at a level that frankly is not possible naturally. And in the book, you get into your feelings about doping and what it does to the sport, and how disappointed you have been at times with American runners who have been embroiled in those controversies. How great a betrayal did that feel? For example, when you compete at your level, many of us are completely oblivious, assuming that we're all assuming that the drug testing takes place almost simultaneously after the race, and if there's doping, we're going to find out right away. And that hasn't been the case in Boston, and we've seen it play out several times. But your feelings about competing naturally and knowing what's going on, but not being able to prove it in that moment.
I think it's hard when you look at missed opportunities of what could have been and how race dynamics could have been totally different. You know, like you have the one person who's just on a totally different level, and you're like, how do we beat that person? How do you break that person? And you're thinking about trying to win, and it's just not possible, you know. And then at the same time, you can't bank on testing or even have that thought, because you could be wrong. Or you could, you know, they could never test positive and just, it wouldn't matter anyhow. So if you want to be at the top, if you want to break the tape, that's the mark you have to chase. And I think the super frustrating thing for me, like I think of the two really big health problem and the femur injury. And those were times where I think I was just really overextending myself trying to win something or achieve something that I would have needed an assist to be able to do. An Olympic medal, there was doping in that race, and then in Boston, trying to chase that for a while, it was like, this is just out of the realm of possibility for someone who's doing it naturally. But those are the leaps you had to take to try to compete. So,
and in the end, there is some vindication and validation of your beliefs when, even if it's after the fact, you know that what you suspected was true.
Oh yeah, there's nothing better than saying, I told you so.
Right? And in that situation, you can.
Yeah, exactly.
What is the state of women's running today in the U.S.?
Oh, it's phenomenal. I mean, I think we're in a really great spot. There's just so much depth, there's so much talent. I think you'll see in a couple weeks in the Boston Marathon, the American field that's been put together to compete with the best in the world is really good. And, there's 5 to 7 women who could place in the top 5 in any different order. It just depends how the day goes, and that's the depth you need to, again, get that person to have the breakthrough performance and not be in the top 5, but get to the top of the top 5.
Would you ever want to coach?
No.
So good!
No, it seems like way too much responsibility.
is sort of, they're ready. They've got the running shorts on, and you've got a big sweatshirt and sweatpants. If you could give advice to that girl in the sweatshirt about running, about life, what would it be?
I think it's the same thing I tell myself today, and that's just make sure you're having fun, which sounds so simple and like, it's kind of cheesy, but in anything we're doing, there's just so much we can do, and there's so many opportunities, and there's so many ways to invest your time, and there's so many people we can spend our time with. And we always have this choice, right? And so if it's not enjoyable, if it's not fun, choose the thing that is. And that's something I think about all the time when I continue to run and decide if I'm going to keep doing this as a profession. So I think that's something that's stuck with me since the beginning, but I would just give myself a friendly reminder.
Outstanding.